You know what, Mike? I never thought you would ask, but today is Marvelous Monday. Yay! Let's have a good day.
And, you know, you could call me Mike. He's my brother, but I'm the better looking of the two of us, so that's okay.
I was so thrilled with the happy birthday. I look forward to that for like a whole year. So I'm just totally.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. All right. So I think I'm going to mute everybody. Or already been, well, there we go. Okay. Get rid of that. There we go. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody. My name is Chris and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November the 23rd of 1993. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's Threads of Recovery workshop. Now, I've stated that I'm an alcoholic and I hate to be alone. So do we have any other alcoholics in the meeting today? All right. I hear in my head when I do that, get down tonight. Get down tonight. Okay. Bill is shaking his head, so I'll just keep on going. We're going to acknowledge God's presence with a moment of silence. I'll follow that with a set-aside prayer. Lord, help me set aside everything that I think I know about you, everything that I think I know about myself, everything that I think I know about my fellows, everything that I think I know about my own recovery, for a much-needed new experience in you, myself, and my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Please help me to see the truth. Amen. 1058 Threads of Recovery continues to offer virtual workshops 5 days a week. To be included in our weekly email, please send your request to threads1058@gmail.com. This will keep you up to date on our workshops. Our group follows the 12 traditions. We stick to our singleness of purpose, and we ask everyone to please refrain from the use of profanity and sharing. The 7th tradition states that Alcoholics Anonymous is self-supporting through their own contributions. Contributions help to cover groups' expenses, but the 7th tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other group expenses. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization, at every level, remains forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. 7th tradition contributions can be made using Venmo to @Threads of Recovery 10-1058. Details are in the chat. This is an open meeting. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics may attend open meetings as observers. And now, without further pontification from me, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, my friend and yours, Bill H.
We are not a glum lot. My name is Bill. I am an alcoholic, and I'm grateful for that. And I want to wish Lingy and Julie happy birthdays again. Happy birthday to you. Bada bing, bada boom. And Bill H. here, alcoholic, sobriety date March 18th, 1981. And I'm so glad those of you with us for the first time are here. I know there's a couple of relatively new folks at the Sis House over there in Indianapolis. Welcome to you, ladies. There may be some other folks on here that are relatively new in their recovery, or maybe people who've been around for a while, been sober for a while, and you're going through one of those periods where you feel like you're new again in recovery. And I want to reassure all of you that are new, relatively new, the first year or so, the first month or so, and those of you that are cycling back around and kind of feel new again, a little unsure, a little uncertain, maybe a little irritated, maybe a little annoyed that you have to be at an AA meeting. I want to reassure you, we're going to try to make this relatively easy today for the new people. We're continuing our series where we study the 12 steps using the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the basic text book of Alcoholics Anonymous is our source. This particular study, we're using a little bit different lens, if you will, two magnificent standards, humility and responsibility. We look at these steps through the lens of humility and responsibility, and as we go along, We're also looking at 7 of the attributes of the 12 steps: honesty, forgiveness, trust, consideration, love, tolerance, and service. You might ask yourself, and even if you're not asking yourself, I'm going to answer the question anyway, where does this 2 magnificent standards, humility and responsibility, come from? Well, I'm going to tell you. Bill Wilson, fellow who was the primary author of the big book, Bill W., gave a talk in Toronto, Canada, 1965, at the General Service Convention of Alcoholics Anonymous, in which he said these words, and I quote, "As we know, all AA progress can be reckoned in terms of just 2 words, humility and responsibility. Our whole spiritual development can be accurately measured by our degree of adherence to these magnificent standards, ever deepening humility, accompanied by an ever greater willingness to accept and to act upon clear-cut obligations, responsibility. These are truly our touchstones for all growth in the life of the Spirit. They hold up to us the very essence of right being and right doing. It is by them that we are enabled to find and do God's will." And I would suggest to you, and we've talked about in this series, steps 1 through 6 produce enough humility. Not perfect humility, but steps 1 through 6 really do put us on the path. Enough humility in us, for us, to try to fulfill our real purpose, which we're going to talk about today and next time in step 8 and 9 especially. Our real purpose is on page 77 of the big book. You look at the top paragraph of your big book on page 77, it'll be in your book too, I promise, I guarantee it. Our real purpose says this: to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. We take our definition of humility from the Alcoholics Anonymous book, 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, a couple of different pages. First one, page 72. Our 12 and 12 says this, quote, "That basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will." Pretty simple, not too complicated. I have a desire to seek and do God's will today. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not patting myself on the back because of my fantastic humility. I'm confessing. I'm admitting. I'm surrendering to the idea. I've been around long enough to know God's will is better for me than my will. So in that sense, I have the basic ingredient of all humility, a desire to seek and do God's will. Also on page 76 of the A&A 12 and 12 is this definition: humility is the willingness to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. If you're new, or if you're not so new, it's easy to forget how self-centered we are. By the way, being self-centered is not unique to alcoholics, but being alcoholics, we think we're the only people like we are. In fact, being an alcoholic, I think I'm the only person. There aren't even the rest of you. It's just me, 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 me. It turns out everybody here is human. Look around the Zoom room. You can even page through the different pages. Even the people you can't see, people that have their screen turned off because they're working or they're eating or they're doing yoga, who knows? We're glad you're here, whether your screen's on or not. Believe me, we're glad you're here. Everybody here is human. Stop and think about that for a minute. It's not more human. It's not less human. We're just human. Just human is something we all share. And the idea that we get a little self-centered, actually alcoholics are extremely self-centered. Some people define our illness as self-will run riot. Humility to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. There's always room for progress in that definition. If I'm brand new in recovery, one little bit moving out from myself is progress. One little bit moving out from myself toward God and other people is progress. If I've been around a long time, people on here over 40 years of recovery today, we still need to wake up with a desire to move out from ourselves toward others and toward God. So our two magnificent standards, as Bill called them back in 1965, humility and responsibility. I also said we're going to look at 7 attributes of the 12 steps in this study. Remember our definition of recovery. You can find this on page 567 in the 4th edition, back in Appendix 2. Appendix 2 is near the back of the book, page 567 in the 4th edition. Recovery is defined as personality change. Change in our personality. Personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. Remember, there's a lot more to recovery than sobriety. Sobriety is a beginning. Sobriety is essential. I've tried to work the program drunk. I've tried to work the program sober. I can tell you from personal experience, working the recovery program, working the 12-step recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous has a more lasting effect when you do it not drinking. There may be someone on here today that doesn't like that. There may be someone on here today, I just broke your heart by telling you you can't do the 12 steps and drink. Now you can. I did it for 3 months. It just doesn't stick because I don't get down to the selfishness. So I'm not here just to treat myself for sobriety. I'm here to find recovery. And recovery is that spiritual awakening we talk about in step 12, or as I've already said, that personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism. The 7 attributes we talk about in this study are honesty, which we discovered in step 1, 2, and 3. Forgiveness, which we found out starts to grow in us in step 4 and 5. Trust, we talked about in step 6 and 7. We're going to be talking about consideration of others today and next time in steps 8 and 9. And that's a bit of a right angle for a lot of us because most of us don't think about step 8 and 9 in terms of consideration for others. But we're going to see today how consideration and responsibility, consideration for other people and responsibility are baked in. They're fundamental to the very fiber of step 8 and step 9. Also in step 10 and 11, we're going to discuss the 2 attributes of love and tolerance. And of course, in step 12, when we get there in a couple, 3 more sessions, we're going to find out the attribute of service. Sort of encompasses all this. And I look back, I look at steps 1, 2, and 3. That is when I became honest, began to become honest, beginning with my alcoholism illness. If you're new, remember, alcoholism is an illness. You don't have to believe it. Stick around, you will. It's not a moral failure. It's not a social condition. It's an illness. One of the unique things about alcoholism is it tells the person who has it that they don't have it. So there may be people sitting with us today who say, I'm probably not an alcoholic. I probably overreacted. Or the people I'm hanging around with are short-sighted, narrow-minded. It's their fault I'm here. I don't even need to be here. There may be somebody, and I'm not just talking a newcomer, there may be somebody around here with a little time in recovery that's beginning to think, I might have overreacted. Well, when I became honest about my alcoholism illness, one of the first things I learned was it told me I didn't have it. So I need to be careful of that. The first thing that became objectionable to me of all my other character defects was my drinking. And I don't have any desire to drink today. My desire to drink has been lifted from me because I sought a spiritual solution, not just for my drinking, but for my whole personality change. In steps 4 and 5, I really got in touch with all my selfish motivations. Once I took the booze away, once the alcohol was out of my system after about 90 days, I began to see how selfish I'd been motivated by all kinds of things. I learned to start trusting God, and this is very important when we get to step 8 in a minute. I didn't learn to start trusting God in step 6 or 7 or 8. If I do the prayers, as I'm working through the 12 steps in the big book, I really start encountering prayers in step 3. I pray, God, relieve me of the bondage of self. That's the centerpiece in step 3. God, relieve me of the bondage of self, which goes way past not drinking. Now, I don't want to drink, but then I get into God, relieve me of the bondage of self, and then I get into step 4, and I do that personal inventory. And I find today there are all kinds of prayers asking God for help with this, asking God for help with that, whatever your concept of God is. If you're struggling with the idea of God, let me just share 2 things with you. There is one, and I'm not it. That's where I begin with God every day. Notwithstanding whatever religious belief you have or don't have, notwithstanding whatever criticism you have of any particular church, it's easy to throw an entire congregation under the bus just because of the Spanish Inquisition. We don't deal with the Spanish Inquisition here. We deal with, there's a power greater than me, and his name is not Bill. That's where I begin every day. Alcoholics Anonymous is a power greater than me. My first home group of those 17 men sitting around that table in Kansas City in 1981, that was my first higher power. I was kind of on the outs with God. Thank goodness God wasn't on the outs with me. He hung in. But my first higher power were those 17 men around that table. If you want to treat this meeting as your higher power, it's okay. Just so long as you understand there is a higher power and it's not me. It's not you. I began trusting God in step 4. I didn't know it. When I began saying the prayer in the resentment inventory, God saved me from being angry. It doesn't say God changed them. It says God saved me from being angry with them. I started trusting God a little bit when I became willing to ask God for help, even if I didn't think it was going to happen. I trust God to save me from being angry, which started guiding me toward forgiveness. And that's why we talked about forgiveness in steps 4 and 5. I asked God to remove my fear. In the fear inventory on page 68 in the big book, I asked God to remove my fear and what God would have me be. You see, I started asking God in recovery in the middle of the 4th step. I go far enough down to say, what would you have me be, before I get back to what would you have me do? First few steps, we stop doing pretty much everything we've been doing because we don't know right from wrong, good or bad, up or down, in or out, black or white. We start drilling down as early as step 4. What would you have me be? We're going to see how be changes into do during step 8 today. We start trusting God by asking God to help us even when we don't know for sure God's going to help us. And I hope you understand that. We ask God to help us even before we believe God can help us. I started trusting God in the sexual conduct inventory on page 69 in step 4. I asked God to mold my ideals, not just in the bedroom. Mold my ideals in all my relationships and help me live up to them. Molding my ideals is another part of God, what would you have me be? Because my ideals are my internal pluses and minuses. Go to my internal motivation. I ask God to mold my ideals, which means change my ideals. And I don't know at the time it's changed from selfishness to considering others. When I asked God on page 69, after asking God to save me from being angry, asking God to take away my fear and what God would have me be, and I move up to God, mold my ideals, if I'm praying those prayers, not just writing the step and not doing any praying. See, there's a lot of praying built into the work of step 4. We're going to see how much praying is built into the work of step 8 today. And the reason I'm dwelling a little bit today on the praying that's in the Big Book in step 4 is I worked that step more than once, skipping the prayer. I'm here to report to you at least this hard-headed alcoholic can work the steps, can write the list, can make the inventory, can even get to something of the part on the right-hand side of the inventory. What part did I play in it? Where did I do some wrong thing? I can do that on my own without God's help. It's just not very effective. It's not deep enough to be producing a long-term result. So I'm emphasizing the prayers in the... I'm not making this up. Page 67, 68, 69, 70 of the Big Book in all 4 editions is full of ask God for help with this, ask God for help with that. Working the step without the prayer is ineffective, at least for me. We get to the point, God help me mold my ideals and live up to them. That means taking others into account, which is why we get to consider it. Learning to become considerate of others begins in the step 4 inventory because I see inconsideration as a character defect. I missed that for quite a few years. I skipped that whole inconsiderate thing. I guess looking back on it, I was subconsciously telling myself, oh, that's just going to be too inconvenient. Not being inconsiderate of others is just too much work. I don't know why I skipped it, but it took me a while to come around to that. And those first 5 steps got me to step 6, where I now see some objectionable things in me that are no longer serving me. Stuff I used to think was working for me is working against me. Did everybody used to think lying was an asset? Show of hands. Okay, maybe not lying, just shading the truth. Is that easier to swallow? Oh, that's better. Yeah, shading the truth is easy. Yeah, Debbie M. liked that one a lot better than outright lying. See, progress, not perfection. Any little bit counts, folks. Remember when stealing? Maybe you didn't see stealing as a virtue, but it was a necessity, wasn't it? They had it, I didn't. They didn't need it, I did. I took it. That's not so hard to understand when you put it that way, right, Debbie G? They didn't need it. They had too much of it anyway. Besides, they're insured. Lying, stealing, cheating, being inconsiderate, being thoughtless, being selfish, being careless. In step 6, I became humble enough to admit these things have become objectionable. God grant me the willingness to let them go. God grant me the willingness to let them go is a huge prayer in step 6, and it really is the manifestation of the humility I learned in the first 6 steps. In step 7, I became responsible based on the foundation of this admission and humility. In step 7, I become responsible enough to trust God with all of me, good and bad, the part I know and the part I don't know. And why has that become important? Not because it's not working for me. I now see by step 7, if I'm paying attention to the book, and if I'm paying attention to my sponsor, and if I'm paying attention to the other people in the meeting that are in recovery, they're not just there to be sober. They're there to have a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. I learned from other people in the meeting. The real reason these things have become objectionable, they're blocking me from the help I need from God. The real reason these things are objectionable, the stuff I used to think I couldn't live without, lying, cheating, stealing, oh yeah, drinking and drugging, that too. The real reason they're objectionable is because they're blocking me from the help I now see I need from the God of my understanding. And so I become responsible enough to try to trust God more. In step 7, the last time we talked about this, we pray to God, remove from me. We talked about the spiritual surgery. Remove from me. I'm going to let God do the spiritual surgery. I'm not going to be my own spiritual surgeon. So I ask God in step 7, remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to God and to others. The things I know about, from my first 6 steps, the objectionable things that are disclosed to me in my inventory, and all the things I don't know about that are really blocking me from God that only God knows about. So now we're at step 8. I have some humility cooking. I have a little bit of responsibility. In step 8, as well as 9, 10, 11, and 12 going forward, my humility and my responsibility are going to grow as I trust God more to grant me the willingness. Now watch this. Among other things, I trust God more to grant me the willingness to practice consideration of other people. I'm going to learn to be considerate of others, and I'm going to learn to like it. Now, I say it that way for a very important reason. I had to learn to be considerate before I learned to like it. Because in the beginning, Julie, you're looking away. I know, I hate to say it myself. It's so painful. But I had to learn to take their ideas, attitudes, actions, feeling. I had to learn to take them into consideration as part of my decision making. I did not like to do that. But you told me I needed to do it anyway. And we're going to see how this comes out in step 8 in just a minute. Thank you, Julie, for letting me play out. But you've got 22 years now. You can handle it. Oh, okay. So we're all still here for help. Okay. So anyway, in step 8, my humility and responsibility grow as I trust God more to grant me the willingness to practice consideration of others, toward others, with others. Now let's get specific in step 8. Number 1, I'm responsible to complete the list we're going to talk about. That's my responsibility. Take pen or pencil in hand. I'm left-handed. Take pen or pencil in hand and make this list we're going to talk about. People I have harmed, no matter what they did to me. I'm also responsible to pray if I want to work the 12 steps according to the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Why would I want to work the 12 steps according to the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I want the promises. I want the promises that are in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found out the hard way, I can't get the promises without doing the work. I wanted to get the promises and not do the work. How many other people here are looking for a silver bullet? Shortcut. Those of you with your hand not raised aren't paying attention, Vicar. Everybody here wants a silver bullet. Everybody here wants a shortcut. It's not just alcoholic, it's human nature. I ask God for the willingness. Watch this during step 8 and 9. I didn't see this for a long time. I ask God for the willingness to make considerate amends to other people. So here's what it boils down to. Boy, that was a long introduction, Chris. In step 8, I accept responsibility for the wrong things I did to others. We're going to see I started doing that way back in step 4, but in step 8, it really gets down on paper. I accept responsibility for the wrong things I did to others and the harm that I caused them. I just accept responsibility once and for all. Quit lying about it. Quit lying to them. Quit lying to me. I would have told you I'm lying to God, except I found out God already knows. I mean, if God is God, God already knows. If God doesn't know, it's not God. So I accept responsibility for the wrong things I did to others and the harm I caused them. I'm also going to become willing during my step 8 prayer and my step 9 actions as I carry my step 8 prayer into my step 9 actions. I'm going to become willing to be considerate of every person I make an amends to. And I'm going to start that process before step 9. I'm going to start that process in my preparation for step 9, which is, after all, step 8. So let's look at the two magnificent standards, humility and responsibility, and the attribute of consideration, particularly the responsibility and the consideration that are built into step 8. Now may we have our first reader. Is that going to be Victor?
That is Victor.
Victor, on page 76, coming off the step 7 prayer, slightly above the middle of the page is this sentence, now we need more action. Could you just read all the way to the bottom of the page. Page 76, step 8.
More than willingly, I will comply. Hi, I'm Victor, and I'm an alcoholic, and I will die if I don't stay here. Now, we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. Could I just finish that paragraph or no?
Thank you, Victor.
Okay.
Just to touch on that bottom paragraph, then we're going to go back to the beginning of what Victor read. Probably there are still some misgivings. Really. That may be one of the 5 greatest understatements in the entire big book of Alcoholics. Really? Number one, when we came here, we were not gifted with self-examination. I was gifted with inventory. I knew how to take inventory. I took your inventory all day, every day. I did not have any experience with self-inventory, self-examination. So step 4, when I started working a step sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, started trying to do them the way the big book said, I started looking at myself, notwithstanding what other people did. Okay, I got through 4, 5, I got through the prayers in 6 and 7, and now I get to this step 8, and he says there may still be some misgiving about going to others and admitting I was wrong. Okay, I just want to concede on the front end of the rest of this discussion. Yes, there are misgivings. I don't want to do it. Let's translate misgiving. I don't want to do it. Which is why the prayers are so important. I cannot do an honest and thorough 8-step list without God's help to grant me the willingness for one reason above all, fear of step 9. And I hear people moan and groan all the time in meetings around, oh, step 8 is so hard, I'm going to have to talk to her. Oh, step 8 is so hard, I'm going to have to go talk to my boss. They start the sentence, and I've done it. Start the sentence talking about step 8 and go right to step 9. We're not talking about the direct amend here. My suggestion is, for the rest of today, at least for the rest of this hour, we're going to talk about step 8 and pretend we're never going to do step 9. Let's just talk about step 8. Set the misgivings aside. Take that box of misgivings, put it in the little U-Haul truck, park it behind the grocery store, and walk home. Set the misgivings aside. Now let's go back to the beginning. We have a list of all persons we have harmed. We do? Yeah. It's column 1 of my resentment inventory, because almost everybody I had a resentment against in step 4 turned out I did harm to them also. Probably some more in the fear inventory. Certainly some of the people from the sexual conduct inventory. So yeah, if we haven't burned our 4-step list, you will not find burn your 4-step list in the big book. If you do burn it because of some ceremonial undertaking, make a copy before you burn it. Otherwise, you're going to start over and have to remember all those people. It's easier just to refer to your 4-step list. We have a list of all persons we have harmed. Let's just take a deep breath right here. Yeah, I harmed some people too. Most of what I felt when I got here, my perception was all the harm they'd done to me, including trying to control my drinking, getting in the way of my drinking, criticizing my drinking, not tolerating my crazy behavior because I'd been drinking, taking exception to the choices I made when I was drinking. Take a deep breath again. Yeah, even though most of the harm was done to me, I probably did harm a few people. And that's where I had to begin. I saw it as really out of balance. Most of the harm had been done to me. I did a little harm along the way. At least I was willing to admit I had done some harm. Now, my responsibility has grown over the years until I take 100% responsibility today for any harm I do or think about doing or do without thinking. I take responsibility today as best I can with God's help for every time I harm or think about harming somebody else. Anytime I think about doing something wrong to somebody that's going to cause them harm, I'm pretty comfortable with my responsibility in that area today, but I've been at it for over 40 years. I'm beginning, I made a good beginning. I'm beginning to get the hang of it. But in the beginning, I really still thought most of the harm was theirs. I'd done a little bit, but that's okay. It's a beginning. We have a list of all persons we have harmed. Now, that's a list of names, and I have the men I sponsor, even if they got the names on their 4-step, we still rewrite it in step 8. And we have column 1, people I wronged. And all the names, dad, mom, boss, whoever. Former wife number 1, former wife number 2, current wife, people I wronged. And in column 2, we write down what I did that was wrong. I actually asked them to make the sentence, I was wrong when I. And we answer that question for everybody in column 2. So we get a list of all the people we harmed, the wrong we did to them. Okay? Look at the next part of the sentence. And to whom we are willing to make amends. You look down that list, you say, hell no. All right, there's some of them I'm willing to make an amend because they're not going to cost me anything. But how about the ones that are going to be financially painful? How about the ones that are going to be emotionally painful? How about the ones that may be socially painful? Maybe the statute of limitations hasn't run out. That little phrase, folks, to whom we are willing to make amends, is one of the biggest things I overlooked in my early recovery. I am not able to be willing without God's help. Period. I tried it. I cannot force myself to be willing to make the amends, particularly the ones that feel like they're going to cost me something emotionally, financially, socially, or even legally. Yeah, we made it when we took inventory. That's where we get the reference. This list comes out of step 4. Now, we shouldn't be surprised when we get to step 8. It's all the way back in Bill's story. Look at page 12. Bill says in his story, he's talking about his first encounter with the man who became his sponsor, Ebby. This is on page 12 of your big book. Upon a foundation of complete willingness. Bill talks in his story. He's not going to get willing without God's help. He says further on page 12, a humble willingness to have God with me. Humble, desire to seek and do God's will. Moving out from himself toward God and others. humble willingness to have God with me. And then specifically on page 13, look at this. Page 13 of Bill's story, a list of people I had hurt, harmed, wronged, hurt, and a willingness to go to them admitting my wrong. Step 8 is right there in Bill's story on page 13. Step 9 is right there. But the first part is step 8, a list of people I had harmed, wronged, hurt, and willingness. Even before he goes to them, he asks God to help him build on this foundation of willingness. And then, that's the responsibility part. The considerate part is right here in Bill's story on page 13. Never was I to be critical of them. Never. That's an absolute. That's a must. Never was I to be critical of them. I read that today and say, oh man. Yeah, but they've done some stuff that really needs to be criticized. Maybe so, but not by me, particularly not when I'm trying to get in the mindset, when I'm trying to get in the mood, when I'm trying to develop an attitude of responsible, take responsibility for my part, consideration, take their feelings into account. When I'm trying to become responsibly considerate, I cannot afford to think even for a moment about criticizing them. This is on page 13. We're going to see it come up again in step 8 and 9. We also saw this sentence. Victor read this rather remarkable sentence. Faith without works is dead. What's that mean? I've got faith by now. I'm not drinking. I haven't had a drink in a while. I'm going to meetings. I got a sponsor. I'm working these steps. I'm in step 8, for heaven's sakes. I must have some faith in a higher power to help me get this far. Faith, trusting in the unknown. Trusting God at least a little bit with what I don't know is around the corner. But the faith, the prayer, without works, without putting those names down on paper, is kind of dead faith. Flip it around. Works without faith is also dead. Works without faith is also dead. If I just make the list, which is the written work, the physical work, and don't ask God to continue to help me grow my willingness to do what I don't want to do, I may now know I need to do it, but I still don't want to do it. So my willingness is about doing what I need to do, not what I want to do. If I make the list, do the work, and don't do the praying, don't ask God for the willingness, I got dead work. I got a nice list with no faith. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead faith. Work without faith is dead works. Dead in the sense it's not going to get rid of the things blocking me from God. I'm not going to be rid of the things in me blocking me from the help I need from God. He says faith without works is dead. Look at steps 8 and 9. Which we're doing right now. We're looking at the step 8 part. We'll do step 9 next time. I am responsible. By now, I'm not dumping this. I'm not shirking my responsibility. I'm not trying to offload my part, no matter what they did, and they've done some harmful things, no question about it. But I'm not looking at that right now. I'm taking responsibility for my part. I work. I write my step 8 list, put down the names, people I was wrong. Column 2, what I did that was wrong. Am I willing to make amends? Yes or no? I write my step 8 list of all those I harmed. I become considerate toward them by becoming willing to make the amend and not be critical of them. Because way back in step 4, I asked God in the 4-step inventory in resentments, God save me from being angry. Hopefully I'm still praying that about these people. Remove my fear. Well, not easy to say. Remove my fear and what you would have me be. What I'm trying to be is responsible and willing to take responsibility for my part in a considerate way toward them. To mold my ideals and help me live up to them. All this came out of step 4. I trust God. I may not trust God completely, but I trust God more than I did before step 1. I trust God, and I'm using my faith, my trust in God, to make my list. I am responsible to make my list of people I wronged and the harm I caused them. I'm 100% responsible for that, no matter what they did or didn't do. I pray for the willingness to not only make amends, but be considerate of them when I do. And he says, middle of the page, now we go out to our fellows. That's men and women, boys and girls. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. Okay, that's the lead in for step 9. We'll come back to that next time because we're not going out to them yet. We're still working on step 8. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. Real quick reference, the little phrase, live on self-will and run the show ourselves. You can read the first 62 pages of the book, or you can go back and reread page 60, 61, and 62. It's the summary of what life is like, not just drinking, but living on self-will, trying to run the show ourselves, playing God even though it doesn't work. If you want to remember what it's like, the effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves, go back and read either the first 62 pages or the summary beginning with the ABCs, page 60, 61, 62. What I want to focus on right now is the middle of this. We attempt to sweep away the debris. Where is the debris? This is a metaphor. This is a spiritual picture. He's trying to explain spiritual picture, spiritual awakening, spiritual life, because you can't explain it, so we have to use word pictures. We have to use, where is the debris that I'm trying to sweep away? In Mike's head? Where else? The debris is not in them. The damage is between us and them. The damage is in their life. The damage is different from the debris. The reason the willingness praying, and it's not one overruling, simple, oh, God, grant me the willingness to make amends. Okay, I'm going to start making appointments for step 9. Willingness praying in step 8 for me is one name at a time. Some of them, am I willing to make amends to her? Yes, she's dead. I'll go to the cemetery, read my amend. Doesn't cost me anything but some embarrassment and self-consciousness in case somebody's watching. I don't mind going to the kids. I can't wait to make amends to the kids because I really will feel better after I make amends to them. So some of them are easy, but there's some on that list that are really, really difficult to become willing. When I didn't take the time in my early years, when I didn't take the time to pray for the willingness, name by name, going through my step 8 list, I was not sweeping away the debris in me. This little sentence I overlooked for a long time. We attempt to sweep away the debris. I can't even make the attempt without asking God to help me. And I tried. I'm going to whip through this step 8 list. I'm going to get those names done by Sunday. And by golly, I'm making direct amends starting Monday morning. I should be done by Wednesday night. Because I'm here to graduate. I'm here to move on. I'm here to get recovery and get out of here. See, I thought this was a project. I didn't realize it was a lifelong process to live with God's help in my life every day. We attempt to sweep away the debris in me, the debris that's blocking me from the help I need from God, the debris, those objectionable things I admitted to in step 6, the all of me, good and bad, that I asked God to remove in step 7, the debris in me that has accumulated out of my lifelong effort, even before I started drinking, to live on self-will, to run the show my way. Before my direct amends, which I will be doing in step 9, which is an action, direct amends, going to somebody and saying, I was wrong when I did this, that, and the other. Before my direct amends action in step 9, I begin to see here in step 8 the debris of my self-will driven past. Things like guilt, because I'm not drunk anymore. Guilt speaks. When you drink, you may not drown guilt, but you sure as hell silence it. You numb the feeling. Keep in mind, we talk about getting high with alcohol. Alcohol is an anesthetic. We don't get high, we get down. We drown things like guilt. We silence guilt. We numb. It doesn't go away, though. It's just down there. Sweeping away the debris of the past. Yes, you're going to feel guilty when you make your step 8 list. That's good. I can't get free of guilt till I admit and feel the guilt. Why am I guilty? Because I did wrong. And my conscience is still alive. Oh, thank goodness. I thought I'd drowned my conscience. How about regret? That's some debris. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Or I wish I had done that when I had the opportunity. How about remorse? How about shame? Comment about remorse. You know the difference between regret and remorse? They don't mean the same thing. Regret just means I wish I'd done it, I wish I hadn't done it. Remorse is I know I'd done it wrong. Remorse, based on guilt. I regret that I missed the first Star Wars when it first came out. That's not a good or bad. I just regret that I missed it. But I have remorse that I kicked my son in the shins when he fell off the ski lift out in Colorado the first time I took him and my daughter skiing. And gee, he didn't know how to ski first time off the lift, Noel. And because I was embarrassed at his incompetence, I kicked him in the shins. I have remorse that I did that. And shame. Here's a word particularly for the new folks. You may be feeling some shame. If you hadn't had a drink in 60 or 90 days, you may be feeling some shame. It's okay. But I want to understand, I did some things wrong. I did some things wrong. But when I start seeing myself as a wrong thing, because I did some things wrong, that's shame. And shame is not healthy. Shame is not necessary. But we have to go through the feeling it and having somebody explain to us the fact that we did some wrong things does not mean we are a wrong thing. The fact that we did some things wrong, the fact that we made some unhealthy, damaging, dangerous choices does not mean we are a permanently damaged piece of goods. And if you're new in this room, if you're new in recovery, ask somebody to talk to you about that. The shame feeling is real, but it is not necessary to retain. We did some things wrong. It does not mean we're a wrong thing. And the bottom line of that is God doesn't make junk. And whether we like it or not, God saw to it that every one of us was made. I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to make me. Now, I have days when I really thought that because I thought I was the center of the universe. But I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to make me. There was little Billy. No. God had a hand in that, I believe. And remember in step 7, any defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to God and others. Shame is certainly at some point in sobriety when I look back and realize, yeah, I did some things wrong, but I'm not a wrong thing. If I hold on to that shame, if I hold on to that self-pity, if I hold on to that self-loathing, that's blocking me from the help I need from God. And way back in step 3, we actually said, relieve me of the bondage of self. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Well, here's some details about the bondage of myself. My taking responsibility to become willing to make my amends while being considerate to others is now God's priority for me. Remember how we left step 7, further up on page 76, right before what Victor read today. As I go out from here to do God's bidding, clearly, God and I rehearsed that. He said he'd put that little message in as soon as I said step 7. God is never late, man. He's always on time. As I go out from here to do God's bidding, clearly God thinks the next most important thing for me to do. What's the matter, Noel? You can't hear me? What happened? How about now? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Still muted a little bit. It's muffled.
Why? How about now? It's still muffled?
It's still a lot lower than it was. We can just go. We'll turn up our volume. You're worth it.
How about now? Any better?
Yep, we'll turn up our volume. You can go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no idea what happened. We had an incoming phone call that I didn't mute in time. Anyway, clearly can you hear me now? As I go out from here to do God's bidding, God must think the next thing for me to do to open the channel for His will in my life is to take responsibility for the wrong things I did and become willing to make amends to all these folks. And then he says on the bottom of page 76, if we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. How long is that going to take? Until it comes. It doesn't mean until we want to. It's when we recognize we need to. Please don't confuse willingness with want to. I become willing to do something when I admit that I need to do it. Once I start doing it, and if it's good for me, I will learn to want to. But willingness and want to don't mean the same thing. Let's look at a few examples of this. We'll talk more about this next time in step 9. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Well, number 1, he says on page 77, we will never get over drinking. Remember why we came in the first place? To get sober? First step in recovery is getting sober. We will never get over drinking until we straighten out the past. Why? Because sooner or later, restless, irritable discontent will come back because of untreated guilt, regret, remorse, shame, so on and so forth. And we'll get restless and irritable at other people, and one day a drink will cease being a bad idea. A drink may not get a good idea, but it'll cease being a bad idea. How about page 78? We do not dodge our creditors. Yes, alcoholics sometimes owe money. A lot of money. Maybe illegally, felonious owing of money. Going to take a little willingness praying there. He says on page 78, 79, we go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. Even admitting I was wrong? Yep. Even admitting I was wrong and did some harm to other people. Any lengths means any lengths. And we need strength and direction to do that. God help me be willing. God help me be willing. Name by name as we go down our step 8 list. Page 79. We don't needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. Takes consideration of others into account again. And on page 80, of course, we're going to talk about this next time and all the time going forward. Place the outcome in God's hands. Now, we learn in recovery, place the outcome of all of our choices in God's hand, but the notion is introduced most dramatically here in the step 8 and 9 process because one of our greatest fears, what are they going to say when we make our amends? How are they going to respond when I tell them, I'm the one that stole your car? It wasn't her. We really have to practice, God help me be willing to leave the outcome of their response to my amend in your hands. Application on page 80 becomes a big deal. With step 8, if I'm doing it the way the book says, including the prayers that started back in step 4, God save me from being angry. God take away my fear and tell me what you would have me be. God, please mold my relationship ideals and help me live up to them. Help me let go of my objectionable things in step 6. Take all of me good and bad in step 7. The things that are blocking me from being of service to you and others. In step 8, I'm praying for the willingness to do these things name by name as I go down the list. I'm being considerate not just to others, but to myself. Consideration includes me. My friends in Al-Anon sometimes call it healthy self-care, which is not self-absorption, which is not self-centeredness. But I need to be considerate of myself as well. And in step 8, particularly the first time or two through the steps, and I'm really new at this and awkward and uncomfortable and really don't like it. I mean, I don't know how to take responsibility. I never admitted I was wrong to anybody in my life. I do not have experience of taking responsibility for being wrong, much less the harm it did, and then become willing to make restitution, try to make it right. We'll get to that more in step 9. I do not have experience with this, so don't pretend if you're new. If you're going through 8 and 9 for the first or second or third time, don't pretend you know how to do this. You don't have to pretend you know how to do this. We know you don't know how to do this. We didn't know how to do this. It's awkward as hell. But the alternative is to go back to drinking and die. Or worse, go back to drinking and not die. And live a long, miserable life. In step 8, I'm considerate to myself. My sobriety is ever important, and I'm responsible in my recovery to ask God to help me make amends, to straighten out my past. And we're going to see next time on page 77. I was going to have a person read this, but we're not going to do it in the interest of time. Top paragraph, page 77, lets the big secret out of the bag. Our real purpose. It's not just our purpose in the meeting. It's not just our purpose in recovery. This is our real purpose for living, as I read it. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Way back in step 3, I asked God to relieve me of the bondage of self. I'm in step 8 now. I've made that list. I'm looking at those names and the harm I did them from the wrong I did, and I'm going through it name by name. Am I willing to work with my sponsor, come up with an appropriate way to say, I was wrong when I did this. I harmed you when I did that. I'm willing to make restitution if possible. Am I really willing, name by name, harm by harm, wrong by wrong, to take responsibility for my part, no matter what they did? Am I willing to be responsible, to take responsibility with all due humility, seeking to do God's will, not my will? And in the process, ask God to help me be considerate of them while I do it. Relief from my bondage of self that I asked for back in step 3 is found I find great relief in step 8, even before I get to step 9, when I do the prayers associated with it. I get the relief from the guilt, the regret, the remorse, the shame. I begin to get the relief from those pieces of my bondage of self when I'm still in step 8, before I ever make my first direct amendment. I'm getting relief from my bondage of self when I accept and adopt step 8 as part of my personal purpose for living. I now see this as more than just not drinking. Doing step 8, preparing to clean up the past in step 9, doing step 8 to start to relieve me of the debris in me of a life not just driven by alcohol, but driven by self-will run riot. I begin to get the relief of the bondage of self before I ever make my first amendment. Because I'm beginning to accept my real purpose is more than just me. My real purpose is to fit myself to be, which means to be fit means I need help. I can't fit myself by myself. You help me. God helps me. My wife helps me. Any spiritually healthy person I go to for help, my preacher helps me. Fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Amending my wrongs to others fits me for this purpose. So my responsible step 8 list the work, and my considerate prayers, the faith. I got faith and works working together here. My responsible step 8 list and my considerate prayers are essential to fit me to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Okay, that's step 8 for today. We're going to make a few observations on responsibility and consideration in step 8, and then we'll close with a prayer in about 10 minutes and then open up for discussion. Is that okay with everybody? That's good, because we're going to do it anyway. Sorry, Victor, you knew what was coming, buddy. Julie, how are we doing? Is this too much for your 22nd birthday? Lingy, where's Lingy? Lingy, you still here? Look at her. There she is, my dear Lingy. God bless you. Okay, some observations. Responsibility and consideration in step 8. Remember, faith without works, dead faith. Works without faith, dead work. Okay. Elements of steps 1 and 2. Yep, steps 1 and 2. I know we're on step 8. Haven't lost it. Don't worry. Stay with me. Elements of steps 1 and 2 are interwoven in the first 60 pages of the big book. In fact, the first 60 pages are all about powerless, unmanageable, came to believe. You'll notice that in steps 8 and 9, the only 2 steps in the book, they're interwoven. They're not one after the other. Interwoven on 76, 77, 78, 79, all the way through to 83. It's just a unique part of step 8 and 9. They are interwoven, and we're trying to unweave them a little bit. We'll do a lot more on step 9 next time, a little bit on step 8. But it's okay to understand. They are interwoven in the book. It's a little confusing. Okay, another observation. My early recovery, I've already told you, I was responsible to make my list in step 8. I did a pretty good job of that. I best I could at the time. Everybody I've remembered, ever wronged, ever did harm to. But, in my early recovery, probably my first 2, even 3 inventories and amends list, I did not really spend much time asking God for the willingness. I just kind of did a general willingness prayer, sprinkle holy water over the whole thing, plow into step 9 and hope for the best. Since then, I've learned to do the willingness prayer a lot more thoroughly and get the benefit in step 8 before I ever do step 9. But in the beginning, I didn't ask God for the willingness to make considerate amends particularly. And I made amends that were so harmful that I then had to go back later and make an amend for the amend. And I didn't drink, but there's not a whole lot of really healthy spiritual recovery in that process. And here's the real problem as I look back on it now. Because I wasn't doing the willingness praying in step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as the book suggests, I was getting very little relief from the bondage of my guilt, regret, remorse, and shame. I wasn't doing much to sweep away the debris in me. I was just trying to fix the thing on the outside so I could move on. I'm sure none of you have been motivated by that, but just in case somebody accidentally slips into it, I wanted to share my experience with you. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. Number 3 observation, we should admit our fault. Why, that sounds so simple. And it is simple, it's just not easy. We should admit our fault. It doesn't say, and their fault. It doesn't say, I'll admit my fault when she admits her fault. We should just admit our fault. That's on page 81, but I wanted to tug it back into step 8 today because this is my responsibility. As I said, 8 and 9 are interwoven in those 7 pages. It's my responsibility to be considerate in each amend I make, no matter how much I think I want to use the amend. I want to weaponize my amend so I can punish them. Go back to square one, Bob. It's my responsibility to be considerate in each amend I make, whether I want to or not. God did not create me to do what I want. God created me to do what God wants. And I really have to start to put that principle to work in step 8 and 9, because this is the first time I'm taking my recovery on the road. It's not just me in a meeting and my sponsor. Now I'm going to take this out in front of other people. I need to start doing what God wants, whether I want to or not. 4th observation, we have no right to involve another person. That's on page 81. Oh, we talk so much today about my rights. Oh, people are just going to hell in a handbasket, worrying about their rights today in and out of the program. We're not talking about rights here. We're talking about responsibility. I need to quit worrying about my rights and take responsibility for my part, including the amends. That's where I learned to take responsibility for my part in life. I learned to take responsibility in step 8, to become willing to take responsibility in step 8 for the wrong, harmful things I've done in the past. Not only to help me not do them going forward, but to help me take responsibility for my part in life in general. This is a tremendous life skill we're learning in step 8. And in my experience, most of us don't learn that until we get sober and get in recovery and get to step 8. Part of my responsibility as I pray for willingness to make considerate amends to each person in my step 8 list produces this. Here's an observation. God willing, it shall not be repeated. That's on page 81. I use this prayer in step 8 for each amend I will make. I also use it during my step 9, which we'll talk about next time. God willing, it shall not be repeated. My willingness comes from God's power, love, and way of life, which I began to learn in step 3. Look at the end of the step 3 prayer on page 63. God's power, God's love, God's way of life, not just Bill's. I'm responsible to ask for God's power to help me, not as a last resort. I'm responsible to ask for God's power to help me at the front end of the process, not when all else fails. We ask God to mold our ideals, comes right out of step 4, page 69. Be considerate of others. Here's one, page 82. We feel a person unthinking when he says sobriety is enough. Now, sobriety is important, but it's not enough. In AA, I'm here for spiritual recovery, not just physical sobriety. I'm here for spiritual recovery, not just physical sobriety. I am responsible to seek God's help to grow in my spiritual awakening as I prepare during step 8 in my willingness praying as I prepare to make considerate amends. I'm praying for that in step 8 so I can do it in step 9. If I wait to do it in step 9, it's going to be too late. I'm praying on the doorstep. They'll answer the door before I'm willing. Now I got to make the amendment. My 7th observation is this. This is way out on page 83. We're going to spend a little bit more time on this next time. Yes, there's a quote. Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. This is so heartbreaking at first because this is at the end of step 9. I thought I was almost done building the building, and he says there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. Oh, I have to reset. I'm going to keep growing spiritually. I'm not going to graduate after I read the promises on page 84. And then he says, we must take the lead. Oh, our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. I won't be patient on my own. I won't be tolerant on my own. I sure won't be kind on my own. And I won't be loving. I won't want God's best for them on my own. I am responsible. Page 83. I am responsible to include these considerations for myself as well as others in my step 8 process. Don't wait till step 9 to do it. In step 8, faith without works is dead. Here's an observation I ran across the other day. Certainty, I'm sure of this, I'm in control, I've got this. Certainty is the mark of the common sense life. That sounds good. Uncertainty is the mark of the spiritual life. What's that mean? Well, the spiritual life includes dealing with all the unknowns that are in part of reality. What's the first one I encounter what's the first huge uncertainty I encounter in step 8 and 9? How are they going to respond to my amend? I don't know how each of them is going to respond. That is a huge uncertainty. I tend to get afraid in the face of uncertainty. I am uncertain of the outcome of my amends, so my faith in God strengthens me in step 8 as I'm preparing to do step 9. Strengthens me to be responsible and considerate as I make my list, do my amends work, and leave the results up to God. In step 8, my desire to prepare to make responsible and considerate amends to the people I have harmed is enabled when I remember what humble humility is all about, my humble willingness to have God with me. That's way back on page 12 in Bill's story. We're introduced to these concepts. We're introduced to every concept in the 12 steps in Bill's story. A lot of repetition because I need to hear it more than once. In step 8, I take responsibility for the wrongs I have done in the past, so that I can be free of the bondage of my selfish past, not so I can feel bad in the present. I may feel bad temporarily while I'm making my step list. I may have anxiety about going to them in step 9. But the purpose of this step 8 is not to make me feel bad and to experience extreme anxiety. The purpose is to go through that and become free of it, so that my past is no longer in the way of living a healthy, happy, joyous, spiritual life in the here and now. Step 8 really does prepare me to sweep away the debris in me left over from my selfish past so that I can live free of the bondage of self in the present. That's the payoff. And it's worth going through a little anxiety and a little uncertainty and a little embarrassment to get free of the past in the present. I need God's strength to want to. I'm not going to want to do this on my own. Let's admit it. Let's not try to do it on our own. I need God's strength to want to be differently on the inside, to want to do these things, to need to do them whether I want to or not. My prayer for willingness in step 8 gives me the want to be responsible for my past wrongs, and the willingness to treat others with consideration, no matter what they've done to me, when I make my direct amends. And finally, aren't you glad to hear me say that? Finally, for today anyway, I take my 8th risk. We talked about the risk in each of these steps. I take my 8th risk in the spiritual awakening of my recovery from alcoholism, I risk taking responsibility for my past wrongs and harms done to others while I'm asking God to help me be considerate of them in the uncertain process ahead. Remember, as Victor read earlier today, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol, and I would add, and alcoholism. Next time, we continue responsibility and consideration in the amends process in step 9. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. You want to take us out with a prayer?
I'm willing. We're going to do a montage from page 76, a combination of 6, 7, and 8. How's that? And in case you don't pick it up when I pray it, it is about willingness. Dear God, I still cling to some things I do not want to let go. Please help me be willing to let go of the things in me that I have admitted are objectionable to me. In addition, God, I'm willing you should have all of me today, the good and the bad. Particularly, I ask you to grant me the willingness to let you remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. God, grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding, and help me be grateful that the first thing you think I need to do, the first thing you think I need to use your strength for as I get up for my step 7, is become willing to make amends to those I have harmed through my wrong action in the past. Help me be willing to go out to these people and repair the damage I have done in the past. Help me be willing to let you help me sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of my effort to live on self-will and run the show myself. God, I thank you for helping me be willing to seek and do your will, not my will. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen.
Thanks, Bill. And everybody can now unmute and thank the speaker.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill, so much. Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful.
Good job, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Great job.
Okay. We will now open the floor for a few minutes for sharing. Please keep your share short and concise to give everyone a chance. And please keep it relevant to the disease of alcoholism and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. No outside issues, please. Raise your hand if you'd like to share.
Sorry. I wasn't able to thank Bill, but now I'm thanking him. I have to thank him. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, we're all alcoholics, that's for sure. No outside issues, please. Raise your hand if you'd like to share, and I'll call on you. The floor is now open for sharing. And start with Irene.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Bill, and thank you to everyone who makes this meeting possible. Are you taking questions, Bill?
Sure.
Okay. This is about the responsibility pledge. You've been talking a lot about that, which is absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. However, it's kind of embarrassing, but remember, I'm in crap hole Canada here, so there's an argument going on around here about the responsibility pledge and what it means. So some people seem to think it means that if I'm an AA member and I have a certain set of skills and I can help somebody with something, let's say I'm a plumber or an electrician, that it's my responsibility to help them fix their sink or do their electrical work or whatever because I'm a member of AA. However, I've never heard that before. My idea of the responsibility pledge is the hand of AA, not the hand of your local electrician or plumber or whatever. So I don't know where that idea came from. I've argued about it before, and I don't want to argue about it anymore. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think the responsibility pledge means?
It means exactly what it says. And it doesn't mean what it doesn't say. It begins with, I mean, this, that's the danger of reading this stuff. It begins with, when anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA always to be there. Well, the implication, and it's a pretty strong implication. If the hand of AA is to be there, that means the hand of Alcoholics Anonymous. What is Alcoholics Anonymous? A 12-step recovery program to produce a spiritual awakening and help you overcome the illness of alcoholism. Doesn't include plumbing, doesn't include marriage counseling, and it doesn't include ministering to the needs of the hereafter. Now, it doesn't prohibit a member from doing those things. In fact, we should. If I'm a plumber and I have plumbing skills, I should be willing to help anybody that legitimately needs my help, not as an enabler, but as a helper. I should be willing to help anybody I can within my own limitations with their plumbing, whether they're in AA or not. But that becomes a service obligation as an individual living in a shared society. Anyone who tries to appropriate an AA or an Al-Anon tradition, which is really what's going on here, and say you have to do it as a part of AA, they're only 100% wrong. Because, number one, it dilutes the power of the tradition. It takes us away from our primary focus, and that's what the AA means in that responsibility statement. Number two, if a plumber wants to go help somebody, let him. Just don't make it a requirement on all the other plumbers in AA. And you say you've been arguing about it, and I would only speak it as my experience and let it go. Some alcoholics have control issues. Shocking, isn't it, Andrea? Some alcoholics have control issues. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Bill.
And some AA members aren't necessarily good people.
Yes, no, we're all good people. Some are misguided.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Next up, we got Nancy.
My name is Nancy. That's hysterical, that question. My name is Nancy Vicha, and I'm an alcoholic from Los Angeles. And, my perspective comes from being sober for 45 years, and I've had decades being here. And I was just so excited with your talking about how it's so true that back in the day, many of us didn't use the prayers that much. We really didn't. And which means it's an opportunity for me to grow and get calmer, a little more spiritual, and learn, which I think is amazing, at 45 years, that fact that you are in many ways just getting clear enough to get a little better. And I wanted to say to Irene that, it's funny because I'm not saying that I have not gotten counseling and plumbing and electrical work by being in Alcoholics Anonymous. But my opinion would be that these are a whole bunch of people. The book clearly says some are sicker than others, and there's a lot of people here that come here for the wrong reasons. And I think it's a whole bunch of people who gather together to try to get a lot of freebies, nothing to do with the steps and the principles and traditions of AA. My question is, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the ability to be love and kind, which is our code, and to be rigorously honest, and yet to stay humble. Because there are times,
Sure,
in working with others in personal relationships, when I feel myself, got it. MYOB, mind your own business.
No, I think that MYOB is good in certain applications, but like everything that's good, we overuse it. But in answer to your question, I always use the metaphor of the duct tape to remind me, silence is golden, duct tape is silver. Silence is golden. You like that, Trudy? Silence is golden, duct tape is silver. I don't need to say everything I think. In fact, I don't need to say hardly anything I think. The vast majority. Now wait a minute. The vast majority of things I think today are pretty tolerant and pretty loving and pretty kind. But that still leaves a fairly large percent that are not necessarily loving or tolerant or kind at the time. I do not have the right to say anything to anybody. And I have a responsibility, therefore, not to say anything to anybody that's not loving, tolerant, or kind. And that sometimes is very hard to discern which is which. But I would much rather anymore err on the side of caution. If I even have the slightest hint, even if they ask me, and I have the slightest inkling, this probably isn't kind or loving or tolerant, don't say it. Now you say, well, what will I say instead? I don't know. But the first step is don't say it. It's frankly not my responsibility to answer every question I'm asked. I need to get over the idea that it's my responsibility to answer every question I'm asked. I can say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or have you prayed about it? And I want to say something else, Nancy, and I'm glad you brought this up. We're going to talk a lot about this next time, the expansion of the responsibility idea. Responsibility and consideration in step 9, humility and responsibility. What is responsibility? It's the ability to respond. Break down the word. Responsibility is the ability to respond. And I would add one thing to it. My wife and I talked about this over the weekend. I'm really given a healthy spiritual ability to respond when I'm responding to God's ability. We're going to talk more about that next time, but the ability to respond and my willingness to make my response based on God's ability is really important. And one of the things God gives me is the ability to say, I don't know, or I don't have experience in that area, or have you prayed about that? I would rather say that and say something that's going to be unkind, intolerant, or unloving. And that's where consideration for others comes in.
George had his hand up. Georgie, do you want to say anything or? Okay, we'll get to George later. Anybody else have anything else? All right. Well.
Oh, I find that hard to believe. Connie, there she is.
Connie from Missoula.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Sorry, I'm internet issues again. Wow, that was brilliant. That was beautiful, Bill. I loved everything you said, but I especially appreciated your discussion of sweeping away the debris. I guess I thought, if I ever really thought about it, I guess I thought Bill was talking about the wreckage and the damage I had done. I did not realize that what he's talking about is the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the regret, the self-hatred that I came in here with that was really blocking me from God. Because when I'm carrying that stuff, I can't see myself as a precious kid of God. I see myself as a mistake. So that was just beautiful. That was so beautiful. I had never read it that way.
That's not to say wreckage isn't there in our relationships. He talks about the wreckage of the past in the promises and so forth. But I think that specific debris thing, I picture me sweeping out the garage during spring cleaning. I got to remember to include the fact I have the debris that's built up in me because of the selfish life I lived.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't, no, I agree with you. The wreckage, the damage is in the relationship. But until I come to a place of some self-forgiveness, seeing myself as the precious kid of God, I can't even begin to rebuild those relationships.
No.
I can't even begin. So thank you so much for that.
And you, before you ask your question, you just reminded me, does anyone know, I asked some people before the meeting, did you know why I wore a Mona Lisa tie to the step 8 and 9 discussion? Does anybody know the connection, in my twisted little brain anyway, between Mona Lisa and the amends process in steps 8 and 9? Anybody want to take a crack at it?
You've taken up forgeries?
Al, it's always so good to have you with us. I'm glad they haven't found you yet. Al's actually not named Al. He's out in Vegas in the witness protection program. Al, here's the answer, baby. Since you had the courage to speak up, I come into step 8 moaning.
Oh.
Sorry, Chris. I go from moaning. I get done with this step 9, I'm going to have this enigmatic smile. And people are going to say, what's that sly smile about? And I say, I'm getting rid of the debris of my past. So you come into step 8 moaning, Lisa, and I'll leave the rest to you, Julie. You're a birthday girl.
Yes, and happy
I do, Al.
Well, I got to wait for Connie to finish. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
wait for me to finish. I want to say happy birthday to Lindy and to Julie. Fabulous. And Bill, in honor of Mike, what did you learn new or different today?
When I looked at it this time, the whole notion of how much consideration of others really is built into step 8. I guess I kind of knew it, but it really blossomed for me a week ago. How much consideration for others is built into the willingness praying because I become willing to set aside what they did and just take responsibility for my part. Look at how considerate it is to them that I become willing, at least for this time, to set aside what they did to me, whether they've made amends to me or not. So consideration and forgiveness, we come out of the forgiveness in 6 and 7. We're going to get into it in love and tolerance in step 10 and 11. I had not seen how much consideration really, and in consideration for myself as well, to become willing to sweep away that debris, or at least have it swept away for me. This is a big revelation to me, Connie.
Thank you. Beautiful. Love you to pieces, Bill.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, everyone.
Al.
Yeah, here I come. I received an email that the code is changing next week, and I don't know if everybody received that email. I tried the code today, and then it didn't work, and then I read the email again, so that the new code begins on the 30th.
Yep.
Just a little nudge from the folks that bring you this lovely session each week, and many other sessions. Interpretive dance,
Al,
yes.
that info for the new Zoom ID is in the chat right now. If you look at the chat, came in around noon in the chat. If you look at your sequence, it's got the new thread for next week. It's in the chat right now.
It's 20 of noon here, but I understand what you're saying. Well, you're ahead of me in more ways than one. I would wear my leotard, I'm breaking down that word, but it doesn't flatter me anymore, nor the tutu. So I will be not providing any sort of dances. Yes, Bill?
If I wore a tutu today, it would be a 4-4.
A 4-4, yes. I understand. At the barest of minimums. Thanks so much for breaking it down for us one more time. I truly value your most excellent perspective on this most excellent journey you refuse to let us stop taking. And you're an inspiration to me, sir. I'm going to break down more words after the meeting, starting with leotard and 4-4.
Well, yeah, leotard. You know, he had a brother. Leo had a brother.
Ba-dum-bum. Oh, sorry, the rim shot came early. Sorry.
Yeah, his brother was named Ree.
Yeah, I saw it. I've been trying to stay away from that because they're still recording, so I'm trying to be PC a little bit. For some reason, they're recording this.
Okay, moving right along. Let me hear from Waco Mike.
This was testing your leadership there, Chris.
You're not going to let Nancy go again? No.
She's double dipping.
Okay, so you can come after me. Hi, family. Alcoholic Mike C. Bill. I think Bill Wilson got me ready for this really, really important step 8 by mentioning on page 67 that I admit my wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight.
Yep.
And then on page 70, I've listed the people I've hurt by my conduct, and I'm willing to straighten out the past if I can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I say step 8 shouldn't really be new news. Starts back in Bill's story, runs all the way through the book.
Mm-hmm.
Taking responsibility for our part. Such a foreign concept when we're new, and maybe not so much later either. Okay, Nancy.
Happy birthday, especially to Debbie, and hi, Al. I have a continuation of my question that's disturbing me here. So I'm going to ask you. During my career, if you can call AA a career, which it certainly has been for me, there were times, and not just once or two. I remember when my friend Judy H. said to me, all you need to do is stay on the path, honey. Just always stay on the path. And there were times when people got in my face and said, I don't think you're on the path. And they risked my anger to tell me the truth. And maybe they said it with love, but I didn't hear it that way. But they did save my life. So maybe that's what I'm kind of alluding to. You know, if somebody comes to you and you're working with them and they're kind of drowning, you know, do you just shut up? Or is there a way to say something? That's what I'm saying. I do think
that's why I love Have You Prayed About It? The question, have you prayed about it, opens the door to all kinds of follow-up discussion. But have you prayed about it, not have you prayed about it, but put your arm around their shoulder or sit down and take their hand in your hand, knee to knee, and say, look them in the eye, say, sweetheart, have you prayed about it?
Yeah,
Or would you like to pray about this together? Here's the key. We are self-centered people. We're self-centered people. We are still all self-centered people. That's not a character defect. That's just human. If I don't try to put God first, I will not be less self-centered. I'm never going to be free of self, but I can have a lot less self-will run riot, which includes knowing what's best for everybody else. If I try to bring God in the beginning, and one way to do that is have you prayed about it, or would you like to pray about it? It really doesn't matter what the answer is. You have diffused the immediate tension.
Okay, now the light bulb's coming on. So
You want to diffuse the immediate tension that is built in to the kind of question you're talking about. And we don't have to be right or wrong. What we have to be first and foremost is present. We're not there to be right or wrong because, I want to play God. I want to have your answer, and I want you to know I have your answer. And you'll come back and feed my self-importance. Why don't we just sit down and say, hey, you want to pray about this? And they say, no, I don't want to pray about this. God doesn't answer my prayers. And I say, would you like to pray about that? Maybe God's answering your prayer, you're just not getting the answer you want, or you're not getting the answer in the time that you want. See, I want all my answers by noon Wednesday, don't you? I mean, it's already Monday. What's he waiting on? He's got 2 more days. Surely God can pull this off. The power of have we prayed about this is huge. As long as I say it in a gentle, loving, tolerant way, not accusingly. Have you prayed about it? I don't want to say it. It's not even so much what I say, it's how I say it. And believe me, it takes practice. It takes practice for somebody like me. I mean, I tease all the time, why can't these newcomers get it the first weekend like I did? And I'm still getting it after a long time here. And I say that teasingly. I don't mean that sarcastically, because I'm still tempted to look at people and say, why can't they get this right away like I did? As if I got it right away. That's just nonsense. But don't forget, we still are self-centered. It's not we were self-centered. And I always have to guard against temptation to be wise. Have we prayed about this? So Nancy, I suggest we pray about this, sweetheart. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Loretta.
Don't forget. This is a woman clearly who prayed.
Hi. No, I just had a question about because usually when someone says the code is changing, I look for the password to change. Because they usually but the password is the same, the whole address is changed.
Correct.
Okay.
I tried to do that for ease of our change to a different room. Okay. The Zoom will remember so many Zoom rooms for you, and most of us have the passcode. So I tried to make it easy on us.
Right. Thank you. I just want to make sure I could get to my meeting next Monday.
And we will have the other room open for a couple weeks, and I'll just direct people over here. Okay. So we've got a safety net.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'll get there.
Yeah, you're not misreading it. The address is different. The password is the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Pamela.
Thank you very much.
Pamela, you muted.
Am I? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I noticed that about the address, and I thought I just wanted to get to the meeting, and so thank you very much. I think it was Loretta, wasn't it? The password, I think, is the same. Now, I only want to say, Bill, how grateful I am for this meeting, and you're sort of validating what I've been on my mind and what I've been trying to do. And I have been trying to pause and pray. And it's very, very difficult. It's difficult for me. But not, I've been trying to pause, and then I pause, and then, I don't really sit still. I just keep, I just keep going. So to hear what you say about the praying part, it's so important. I have come to find it's vital. I mean, I haven't really been praying, you know, and I've been saying kind of a few words and not really being present. So I don't want to say any more because I'm just so happy that for everything you said. Everything that you say stays with me kind of during the week, but not in a very coherent way. It comes in and out of my mind, you know. It helps me so much because things like when you say, you know, your spiritual awakening and how you want to protect your spiritual awakening and all the things that you say come in and out of my mind anyway. But as I said, not in a very coherent way. I can't put it all together exactly like, of course, you do. But thank you very much because the prayer I've come to realize is all important. And that's the like you say, I've got to pray now, you know. And that was so nice, you know. You know, why don't we pray about it? Thank you.
Pamela, I want to remind you and myself and everyone else, by the time we get to step 11, which is pretty well into recovery, step 11.
Yeah.
Look at what we're going to be praying. Sought to improve my conscious contact.
Yes.
Leave out the prayer and meditation for a minute. The purpose of step 11, sought to improve my conscious contact. That's a relationship.
Yeah.
You and I have a conscious contact with each other right now because we both made the decision again today to log in, do Zoom magic, and show up in the same Zoom room again. We made a deliberate decision to have conscious contact through the electronic medium of Zoom today. This is a relationship. The relationship, the Zoom equivalent for my contact with God is prayer. The login is prayer. The password is I need help.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so what you're trying to do, keep in mind the verb in step 11 is seek. It's never get perfect. We are seekers here. We are seekers. And be very careful not to beat up on yourself because you're not a perfect seeker. You're a seeker. And every time you ask God for help, no matter how flimsy it feels, or no matter how soon it seems to go away, as soon as you stop, remember.
Thank you.
You logged in and you said the password, I need help.
Yeah.
Okay. Stay with me.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Stay with me.
Thank you. Thank you. I will. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Debbie, you had your hand up for a while. Do you want to ask a question?
Oh, it was just getting late. I was just going to say I really like the considerations, and I especially like the use of we ask God to mold our ideals about what this is going to look like. I can use that in all kinds of ways. It's like, oh my goodness, I've got a new spiritual tool that I can use in all kinds of different ways. And then also, I had heard something else about certainty, and they had linked it with stop learning. Because I'm certain that this is the road, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm absolutely certain. So I need nothing else. And I've just blocked everything. And
that's good.
Yeah, and then also I've been noticing that all my uncertainty nowadays it doesn't go to fear. Some uncertainty I'm now more comfortable with because of my experience that faith is being built. So I liked how you brought that out, and then the humble willingness, you know, and if it's common sense and uncommon sense, my common senses are my eyes, my ears, my sense of smell, the things that I know, you know, but that other, you know, and what is it? The visual proof is the weakest so anyway, I just loved it. So thank you very much.
I would make a comment about certainty. I got up early to make a 12-step call across the Mississippi River in Illinois. I went to meet a man. The bridge I drove across, and Mississippi's pretty big here. It's a big river. And the bridge I drove across is under construction again, under reconstruction, under repair. And the southbound side, the south side is shut down, so they got it down to, narrow lanes across. And as I'm coming up to the bridge, I'm thinking, they're working on the south span. I hope the north span's okay, because that's the one we're fixing to drive across. And I went from certainty in that bridge to uncertainty in that bridge in about a heartbeat. I did not slam on my brakes, make a U-turn on the interstate. I kept going in faith, because a lot of other people, including trucks, were going across ahead of me, and they were not getting a bath. But I drove across that bridge in faith this morning. I believed the bridge was okay when I got to the other side. The difference between faith and belief is it's already happened. Faith, it hadn't happened yet. But what I got to thinking, certainty is fine when it comes to engineering. 2 + 2 = 4. I'm certain of that. I can take 2 toothpicks. I can take 2 more toothpicks. I can lay them out in front of me and say 1, 2, 3, 4. Certainty is fine with a certain degree of science, so on and so forth. It's when we bring certainty to spiritual matters. This is what Bill talks about a lot in his discussion about faith in the chapter 2 agnostics. Taking the certainty we have in the scientific, the mathematical world, and trying to transfer that to the spiritual world, thinking we can have the same control. That's the contrast between the common sense and the spiritual. And when we embrace uncertainty, as Debbie just said, that's where God is hiding the next surprise. All of a sudden, I don't have to be afraid of uncertainty. God's got something more up his sleeve. What do you think, Loretta? Thanks, Debbie, as always. Loretta, where'd you go?
Wait 1 second.
Oh, there you are.
Yes. I totally agree with everything Debbie said. I like the uncertainty because it's really true. I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of the amends. I really like that. So when I go for it, I'm not certain that I'm going to get the results that I want. I never thought about it like that. I think I never really think about that part of it, because that part of it is God, working for me on that person accepting what I say and not throwing me out the door or beating me up. I never really think about that part. I am uncertain. I like that. But the condition, consideration, I use it in Steel on Steel, or something I heard from Mark Houston. He would always say, consider this, take this into consideration, and stuff like that. But I never bring it into my steps. So now I will begin to take my steps into consideration and get a different answer, I believe, from God.
Amen.
I'll meditate on them.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. I never take it in. I take it into the other thing, but I never take it into my step work. That I shall start doing. Thank you so much. And I totally agree with everything Debbie said.
Well,
I love those words.
I tell you what, if Loretta and Debbie agree, we better pay attention.
I totally agree. Thank you. Thank you. It's the use of the word. Thank you.
Loretta, you're a joy. I'm so glad you're with us.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, okay.
I learned so much on this meeting here.
We do too.
I really learned a lot.
You are a joy, Loretta, but I think I'll stick with Waco Mike.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stick with all of y'all. How about that? All of y'all play a part.
She just called you and raised you, Chris.
All of y'all play a part. Mm-hmm. And I really missed the other Mike, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Joy. He was a joy. Yeah, he was a joy. I miss him. Okay, thank you.
My ego, the ruler of my life, is going to get seriously threatened in this step.
You think?
I've got some humility coming. A real battlefield of recovery.
Think of all the excuses we use to either avoid step 8 and 9 or to do a rather thin. Think of all the excuses just you and I have come up with in the past to do a minimal step 8. And we use all these excuses when it boils down to what you just said. Myself realizes it really is not in control anymore. And trying to trust God to lead and guide and direct me.
Kind of feeds back to my powerlessness too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do what Dr. Bob did.
No.
Try to stay sober without beginning this process.
No.
Of 8 and 9.
No.